welcome back to Streed's Guide to Fraggle Rock, and today I'm reviewing Season 1, Episode 22, Mokey's Funeral. This episode starts out with Doc in an ornery mood since he's been stricken with the hiccups, while Ned Schimmelfinny gives him useless advice. After hanging up, he begins to get snappy with Sprocket as well.
Oh, eat it off the floor, Sprocket. Sometimes I wonder why I keep a dog here at all.
Meanwhile, in Fraggle Rock, Mokey runs into Gobo and Red, who are in the process of building a boat in Sweetwater Grotto. Mokey offers to help, but the duo brush her off and say they're in charge of the practical aspects of the construction, while she resides in the artistic department. Mokey's somewhat off-put by this, so she decides to go to the Gorg's garden and pick up a few radishes. And unfortunately, Junior set up a trap laced with the pungent smell of garlic gumdrops. Now, I understand that Junior isn't exactly the most intelligent character, but even he should have known to use radishes in lieu of garlic gumdrops. It's been well established that the Fraggles love radishes, and even if the Fraggles are smarter than that, I still think Junior should have at least tried instead of using something as random as garlic gumdrops. In light of this predicament, Mokey attempts to come up with ways of immobilizing the trap so her and the others will be able to get radishes, and has one of the strangest fantasies I've ever seen.
I shall step bravely forth and selflessly give my all. I shall be sacrificial princess.
Now, perhaps she's fantasizing this because of the heroism and perceived elegance of it, but still. Quite a dark mentality to put yourself in, even if it was for a brief moment and Mokey eventually came to her senses. Mokey suddenly has a random stroke of genius and goes to tell the others about it, but they're quite rude and again blow her off. Even Boober makes an uncharacteristically snide remark towards Mokey.
It is my job to get rid of the silly trap, and I have a wonderful idea.
It can't possibly work.
You tell her, Boober.
Gobo attempts to save face and tries to cheer Mokey up by offering to help, but Mokey, still understandably hurt by the others' complete disregard of her usefulness, says she can carry out her plans on her lonesome. She relaxes in a tranquil cave, talking with the stuffed patchy dummy of herself dubbed Rags, and sings a heartwarming ballad with slightly melancholic undertones.
And when you go there, never know the loneliness I feel. Dance with me, my ragtime queen, before I set you free. On lonely days, you'll know the ways that you are just like me.
I love the little added detail of the cave creatures dancing along to Mokey's beautiful singing. Nice touch. Back in the workshop, Doc is remorseful for his cruel comment against Sprocket while he resides outside with a storm on its way. Ned suddenly calls and Doc pleads with Sprocket to come back inside while rain begins to pour. Also, where did this umbrella come from? Sprocket didn't have it just a few seconds ago. Meanwhile, in Fraggle Rock, the gang is bored waiting for Mokey, so to pass the time, Gobo does what he always does in situations like these. He takes a nap. Just kidding, he reads a postcard from his Uncle Traveling Matt. Matt finds himself in a mall and discovers an ice cube, which he mistakes for a stone. He attempts to return it to the owner he calls the Wizard, but is unsuccessful in his search. He then discovers that the stone has disappeared, leaving behind what he assumes are tears. In retrospect, this makes absolutely no sense, and I'm going to explain why. Firstly, later in the show, it's established that when winter's near, the rock freezes and icicles appear. So how exactly does Matt not realize that this stone is actually ice? It never occurred to me before, but this is a major continuity error. After the postcard, the Fraggles are still quite listless, and this leads to one of my least favorite scenes in the show, where the Fraggles outright diss Mokey, calling her plans dumb and even insulting her poetry, while she overhears the horrid display.
yeah, it was pretty boring, all right.
Yeah, well.
Mokey, Mokey! Mokey! Oh, no! We were just kidding! We were just kidding!
Mokey throws Rags into the trap while hiding from Gobo and Red and Where are Wimbley and Boober? In the last scene, they were chasing after Mokey as well. Anyways, Junior's delighted to have caught a Fraggle, but that joy soon turns to regret.
I've killed a Fraggle!
Killed Mokey?
Mokey's absolutely reveling in the fact that she's fooled Gobo and Red, but when the duo walk into the garden before she can announce that it was a trick, Junior sets the trap right back where it was, and Mokey's beginning to regret pulling such a cruel gag. But honestly, I don't blame her after how they've been treating her, and it's not as if she actually planned to trick them. Ma Gorg walks out of the castle and tells Junior of his perceived grave mistake. I'm actually quite surprised with how Ma reacted to this news. Despite her fear and possible prejudice against Fraggles, she's actually saddened by the death of a Fraggle, suggesting Junior should bury it.
I want to give it a funeral.
That's very sweet of you, dear.
I'm not sweet. I killed it.
Oh, poor Junior. You must feel terrible.
I only wanted to keep it in a cage, just to play with it.
Junior, you're breaking my heart.
Gobo and Red seem to be convinced that their beloved friend Mokey is gone, and I've got to give props to Karen Perel for her acting ability here. Despite this being such a mediocre and contrived episode, she really does an incredible job at portraying the deep sadness Red feels for believing she's lost her best friend.
She's my best friend! You don't understand! She's my best friend!
Junior gets dressed for Mokey's funeral and sings a morose song. Even though Mokey's fine and nobody died, this song still manages to get me teary-eyed because Junior genuinely believes he's killed a Fraggle, and his reaction is so emotional and raw. I think anyone that's unintentionally killed a creature in their youth can relate to his despair. Junior begins digging a grave for Mokey, while Gobo and Red are furious at Junior for seemingly killing their friend. Meanwhile, Mokey grabs the paddle from the grotto and springs the trap to distract Junior, who promptly removes the trap, allowing Gobo and Red to get closer to Mokey's supposed corpse.
It's a dummy.
It's a dummy.
It's a dummy.
It's a dummy!
Mokey!
This episode has gone from contrived to completely disregarding the laws of reality. How in the absolute hell were Gobo and Red fooled by this obvious dummy? Even if it was for a second, they should have realized the moment they locked eyes with it that it was fake. The Fraggles tell Junior, and he's delighted to know that it was just a dummy all along. Back in Fraggle Rock, the Fraggles compliment Mokey on her ingenious plan and apologize for their unnecessarily cruel comments, and the group decide to let her name the boat.
And that's what we'll name the boat.
The Gravedigger?
No! The White Bird!
Yeah! Great! Yeah!
After this, the group head to a serene red-tinted cavern, and this place is so beautiful. I know these are obvious miniatures, but the immense detail and effort are definitely shown in this beautiful shot. Back in the workshop, after the storm, Sprocket comes back inside and forgives Doc, with his hiccups luckily disappearing, curing him of his crankiness.
Staying on that wet porch is giving you a cold. You know how grumpy you get when you have a cold.
I'm only teasing. Only teasing.
This episode was pretty mediocre. It's not bad by a long shot, and I'd gladly watch it again, but the character writing is very flawed here. The Fraggles, besides Mokey, act so out of character. It felt like a complete plot contrivance for them to say such insulting things. Because had they listened to Mokey's plan, the episode wouldn't have happened. So under scrutiny, this episode completely falls apart. Besides this, again, how did Gobo and Red not immediately notice that this was a dummy? They're obviously smarter than that, so it felt like the writers purposefully dumbing down the characters just for plot convenience. Overall, this was an okay episode. Unfortunately bogged down by the severe plot contrivance, I really enjoyed the songs, especially Ragtime Queen. It's a lovely ballad conveying Mokey's loneliness and longing for companionship. I'm gonna rate the episode Mushroom. Far from my least favorite, but definitely not Fraggle Rock at its finest, writing-wise. Well guys, that was the review, and I will see you all